Yay! Hello, everyone. We're live. I'm Lisa Neer, composer and mezzo-soprano, and I am here with the amazing Christine Hoerning, who is a clarinetist and is performing Gulper, my piece about a deep sea fish, on our concert of Wind and Waves at the end of January, on January 31st. And Christine, welcome. It's so great to have a chance to talk to you.
I'm really glad that we finally get the chance to sort of talk in person.
Totally. So, yeah, and we'll get to our story and how we connected. But I'd love for you to introduce yourself to our viewers and tell them a little bit about your story in music and in life so far.
My name is Christine. I play the clarinet. I currently live in Montreal, but I'm originally from New York. I moved here 8 years ago. I'm a freelance clarinetist. I play with a couple of small orchestras throughout Quebec and New York State, and I focus primarily these days on contemporary music. I'm also the visiting professor of clarinet at the Crane School of Music. Yeah.
Awesome.
Kind of what I've been up to.
I love it. And I'm curious because, some people, some performers, like in my circle, you're a performer, so you know this, like we have performer friends who like do a ton of contemporary music. We also might have those performer friends who like never have gotten into it. Like what got you excited about playing contemporary music and when did that happen for you?
It was actually when I was doing my master's at McGill. So I wasn't really exposed to a lot of contemporary music in my undergrad or in the time that I was studying between doing my undergrad and my master's. And my first semester at McGill, I was placed in the orchestra and the contemporary music ensemble. And I think one of the first pieces I played, I was playing contrabass clarinet for a work by Xenakis. And it was wild and filled with multiphonics and slap tongue, and it was just kind of baptism by fire. But it was such a interesting and challenging experience. And then once I graduated, I received an email from someone looking for a clarinetist for a gig, and I just said yes. And I didn't know what the expectation was.
Sure.
And it was largely improvised. And that was kind of, again, baptism by fire into improvising and that aspect of contemporary music. But the director of that performance, Andre Papatomas, I've been working with him now for the last 6 or 7 years. His partner wrote an opera that I got to premiere, and it just kind of happened for me.
Yeah.
It's been great.
Oh, that's so awesome. And clearly, like you say these were sort of baptism by fire. You just jumped in, to the deep end. But like some people that may not have been like something that sold them on an experience. But for you, like what do you think captured your excitement, or what is it that brings you back to working with contemporary music?
For composed contemporary music, I really like the challenge that it places. I like that I look at it and I'm like, what? How am I supposed to do this? What does this mean? Because I think that's something that I don't necessarily always find with more classical or traditional pieces. And then in terms of improvising, it's such a wonderful, exciting, creative thing. You really listen to everyone around you, and there's this kind of organic connection that forms.
That's so neat. I admire that. I do a lot of contemporary music. Not very much of it so far has been improvised. And so I think that's so neat. And I know we've got some people watching, and please feel free to pop a question in the comments if you have a question for Christine, and I'll be sure to ask her your question. So you have this really neat project, the iClarinet project, and that's actually how we met. So tell us a little bit about that project.
So I guess towards the end of 2019, I discovered Reddit. And Someone had posted one of the visual artworks of John Stump. He
Hmm.
used like musical notation as visual art. So the works aren't actually meant to be played. And when
Hmm.
you actually read through them as a musician, you're like, oh, this is just, it's a joke.
Hmm.
Um, but I was like, oh, you know what? I think I could like condense it and simplify it, and I can play it.
That's
So
awesome.
I did, just for fun. And then I was like, I love playing contemporary music, and I have this free time, and I posted on Reddit originally that I was looking for as much new music for solo clarinet as possible, and my goal was to learn and record uh, as many works as I could in 2020. And I think I wound up recording around 30.
Wow. That's a ton.
It was some, like, I tried to learn them as quickly as I could. And the recordings I did on my own, they are not, high quality or like studio worthy at all. But it was just an opportunity for me to get to meet new composers and to challenge myself and my playing, but also to get these works for clarinet out there, and so that there's an auditory reference for the
Totally.
that may or may not have been played.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, you're sort of, as a professional musician, you're aware of the artistry and the amazing work that like a professional audio engineer does. But I think also, like, I would encourage you, like, don't let that kind of make what you did sound small, because like what you did was amazing. And also for composers, I mean, I'm telling this to composers that work with me all the time, a recording that's played well, that's recorded on an iPhone, is a good recording. I mean, the technology around us is so amazing in our daily life. Like, it's so much better than it used to be. It's not a cassette tape with pops and skips anymore, and that live performance is just, it represents the piece, and it really is the piece, in my opinion. I don't think the piece exists for myself. My pieces don't exist if they're just on paper. They only exist when they're actually put into real auditory life with a human being creating that art. So what you did is so amazing, and that is how you first got to perform my piece Gulper, and that was so fantastic. I was really excited to have you perform it, and then you performed it again this fall, and you're gonna have to remind me the name of the conference because it just left my Woodwind Fest. Woodwind Fest. Yes. Okay. Wonderful. So that was super cool. So Gulper, tell our viewers a little bit about Gulper and what they can listen for in the piece, or if there's anything you can add as a performer to what you kind of interpret in the piece.
I loved working on this piece because it was one of the few pieces that I got that used more extended techniques,
Oh, yay!
and especially the glisses. That's
Yay!
my thing. I love glissing.
Awesome.
But one of the first things that I noticed about this work is that it's so cinematic. Like, it's so
Oh,
and I just felt like I got such a clear image and sense of what was happening, and the movements of this fish that you had created in this work.
oh, thank you. And for people, if people don't know, Google, after this is over, like, Google Gulper eel, and you'll see these really, really zany, most of them artist renderings, because we haven't seen a lot of them alive because they're deep water fish. It's hard to study them while they're swimming around, but it looks like a long eel. It has like this gigantic mouth and this skinny tail. It is a fish, not an eel, but colloquially called the gulper eel that inspired it. So yeah, I'm so glad that came across. What else can you share with people?
I think I love the extremes that the piece really creates. It has so much texture to it. There's like these moments where everything is just sort of floating and very watery, and then you have these like soft tremolos that come in, and then these flashes of um, of technique and brilliance and movement, that sort of like comes suddenly out of this like very watery and like tranquil. Um,
Awesome.
it's great. It's super fun to
Yay.
play also.
Oh, that's so great. I do this thing when I'm writing, is I sort of go listen and read all the things I have about whatever instrument I'm writing for, and I go listen to a bunch of things. And one of the things we're always thinking about with the clarinet is all the colors, at least for me, and I thought, wow, what can I do with the high clarinet register? And like you get a fantastic player like you. I mean, the clarinet plays high.
Mhm.
And I think when we are studying clarinet in college sort of as orchestral clarinet, we often end up putting the clarinet maybe as a middle voice and letting the flutes carry a melody in like a big chord because of balance issues or because of the clarinet's ability to sort of connect the flute color to the oboe color and make the chord sound really unified. And like that's a really neat property of the clarinet. But as a soloist, it was really, really fun to imagine what would be possible in sort of a storytelling or a narrative context with the low chalumeau register and the high clarinet register, and really highlighting those contrasts. So that makes me super happy because we composers, I'm pretty sure I'm not alone in this, but I'll at least say it for myself. There is a lot of time spent kind of wondering, are these ideas going to work, or is this the best way to express this? Will people understand what I'm going for? And so that's just so exciting. And I'd love for you to tell us too, before we wrap up here, a little bit about what is a multiphonic, because people may not know if they haven't, or maybe they've heard it, but they want a refresher, and it's different on different instruments. So what is a multiphonic? Because you do have a dramatic couple of multiphonics at the end of the piece.
So a multiphonic is when you play multiple notes at once, which on a monophonic instrument can be challenging. A lot of times we wind up playing multiphonics as kids when we first start playing the instrument, and then we don't realize that we're doing it. We think that it's a bad sound, or we did something wrong, or and we're taught to avoid it. And then kind of as you mature as a player, if you're diving into contemporary music, then you realize, oh, all those things that I was told not to do as a kid, I want to do them, but I want to be in control of them when I do them.
Sure.
So there's a unique set of fingerings that will work, that will help to create the multiphonic, but you're really kind of fracturing the pitch, and it's emphasizing different overtones that are and you're able to get multiple notes at once. And some of that stems from the fingering, but a lot of it stems from the voicing. So using a higher fingering and then voicing it as a lower pitch, and you can kind of create more tones.
Wow. And when you say voicing, are you actually vocalizing to produce that?
In that one, I did, because
Yay.
a lot of times, sometimes the multiphonics will speak softly, or you can't be as aggressive with them, because if you put too much air behind it, the pitch will stabilize. That's what the clarinet is designed to do. So for that one, since it was written to be, I think, fortissimo and accent, I was singing while playing, which sounds a lot more challenging than it actually is.
It sounds challenging to me. I bow to you, and I'm so excited for people to hear it. And it was really fun to get to use that technique, and also to take advantage of sort of what you were saying, the idea that sometimes a noise comes out when you're first learning the instrument that's sort of a noise that's not the noise you want. And now to reclaim that and be like, this is the noise I want, and we're going to make it really bold and loud. And that's super exciting. What's coming up for you this spring? I mean, our lives are really different as musicians. So sometimes, what might have been, a spring that looked one way might be looking a different way. But what do you have coming up?
I do have a faculty recital that's coming up in March, I think.
Yay.
The end of March. The program where I teach, we tend to focus on a lot of traditional music and classical music. But I kind of wanted to take this opportunity to showcase what I'm really passionate about, So I'm actually writing a full program for just clarinet and looper, and I'll use my
Awesome.
work in electronics for that. So that's been like my little pet project.
Wow, that sounds so exciting, and I hope people will keep an eye on Christine on social media and online and go watch that concert. That's going to be awesome. Yay. Well, thank you so much for coming on live and chatting with me today. I'm so excited to have audiences experience your just phenomenal performance of Gulper. It's going to be super, super fun. So we're really coming up on the concert. The concert is happening Sunday, January 31st. It's at 2:00 p.m. Pacific, 5:00 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to pop the link below and once we're done, so you can look for that there. The concert is Of Wind and Waves. You can also look for it on Facebook. There's a Facebook event. Tickets are on sale now. It's $10 for a whole household to watch this concert. It's going to be awesome. You'll hear Christine. You're going to hear wonderful violin music, flute music, piccolo music. I'm singing, harp performance by Daniel Kuntz, and all of the music has to do with the currents of water, the currents of air, the currents of emotion that surround us. So here we have the water represented with the Gulper eel, and there'll be other pieces that explore these elements of nature and elements of our emotional world. So I hope that everybody who's watching now or on the replay will check that out and join us if you can. It's going to be really, really special. Thanks, Christine.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me and including me in this.
Yay!